Today we gather against injustice to remember our immediate history, one that still cuts us deeply. On November 10, 1995, Nigeria and the world witnessed an execution, a deliberate, cold, and calculated act of state violence designed to silence truth and crush dissent. That day, the Nigerian government, in partnership with corporate all interests, hanged Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 fellow Ogoni leaders, namely Saturday Dobe, Nodu Ewo, Daniel Boko, Paul Levera, Felix Nwate, Baribo Bera, Barinem Kyobel, and John Puine. They were murdered not because they disobeyed any known laws, but because they exposed oppression and questioned a mindless establishment. Ken Saro-Wiwa was a defender of human rights and of nature's resources, a commitment the state not only found strange and intolerable, but also chose to punish with death. His ideology, erectism, captured his vision that included ethnic autonomy, ethnic ownership and control of resources, and ethnic control and management of the environment. It called for sustainable development and national unity. You agree with me that when everyone is in control of the environment, there will be cohesion in the nation and unity and focus in making progress. Saro-Wiwa believed that nature's resources were not to be destroyed, but managed to foster human-environment connection, and by extension, sustain life and cultural identity. Without mincing words, he reminded us that reckless extractivism, as was the case in Ogoniland, was poisonous, and that oppressed voices must never be silenced. In fact, one of the last poems he wrote before he was hung in 1995 is titled "Silence Would Be Treason." And that poem said, if your environment is polluted, your land is destroyed, your water is contaminated, and you just stand and look, then that is treason. So he never believed in being silenced. And today we're happy that the people are not silenced. Saro-Wiwa called for change in a system where multinational oil corporations smile to the bank, while rich communities starve with crude oil poisons, while crude oil poisons their waters and land. His life and legacy reminds us of the enduring significance of justice and the certainty that any society built without fairness and human dignity is an unsustainable society. Ken Saro-Wiwa was a selfless leader dedicated to the betterment of the Ogoni people, the people of the Niger Delta, and of Mother Earth. He leveraged the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, MOSOP, to shape a regional agitation against unmitigated exploitation, abandonment, and political erasure. He placed the Ogoni ecological genocide firmly at the center of national debate and global attention. Ken Saro-Wiwa would have been 84 on October 10 this year, but his life was cut short, of course, we all know, and today he is a martyr of extractivism globally. So when we say he placed the Ogoni ecological genocide firmly at the center of national debate and global attention, we are just stating fact as it is. Saro-Wiwa was later to pay the ultimate price for confronting Shell. His peaceful resistance was criminalized, and he was detained on false fabricated charges, dragged before a sham tribunal, a kangaroo tribunal, where truth was buried and injustice reigned. His death bettered a renewed struggle consciousness, and inspiration for a livable environment. Indeed, his courage has ignited movements globally and across generations. He was a brave man and declared quite patiently that even if he were killed, his ideas won't die. And that is validated even by this gathering this morning. The ideas that he lived and died for would never die. As he declared while facing the hangman's noose, the environment is man's first right. Without a safe environment, man cannot exist to claim other rights. That is still the reality of the Niger Delta today, where the water, the everything contaminated. Although the injustice he denounced continues today, the people have risen and refused to be silenced. The Ogoni land remains polluted and covered by toxic spills, making fishing, farming, and diverse land uses difficult. Our rivers remain contaminated. Gas still burns and releases toxic smoke directly into the lungs of the indigenous people. Life expectancy continues to drop. Communities still cry in hunger, robbed of their livelihoods, while oil companies and their collaborators continue to reap mindless profits. Up till today, the same machinery of oppression, silence, and government indifference continues. At the moment, government and corporate actors deepen this injustice through ongoing divestment plans in Nigeria, which ignore the basic tenets of seeking the free, prior, and informed consent of the people, and amount to a mockery of genuine reparations. Oil companies responsible for 7 decades of pollution now attempt to walk away, shifting liabilities while communities remain in ruins. Equally troubling is a recent presidential pardon of the Ogoni Nine by President Tinubu, a hollow gesture crafted for political points, which manipulates history and justice instead of addressing the truth of their judicial model. Added to this is the confiscation of the Ken Saro-Wiwa Memorial Bus, despite a clear ruling of the Federal High Court against it. Its continuous seizure is not only illegal, but also a painful reminder of how state institutions weaponize power to suppress memory and diminish the social and political legacy of the people. Furthermore, even as remediation efforts remain slow, flawed, and incomplete, we note renewed attempts to reopen oil wells in Ogoni land against the will of the people. Such moves, rather than healing wounds, risk reopening them, signaling that lessons from Ken's struggle have yet to be learned by the system and by the state. It is therefore important that we remind ourselves of these struggles and demand with urgency and without compromise that the agitations of Ken Saro-Wiwa be heard very clearly and turned into concrete action. We, the underlisted non-governmental organizations, on behalf of the immediate and extended families and of those affected frontline communities and interested parties in the Ogoni struggle, make the following demands.
The first demand we have here is to have a thorough and transparent cleanup of Ogoni land and the entire Niger Delta. Not in cosmetic reports that will later gather dust, nor in committees that apportion blame and politicize recommendation, but in real visible action that restores land, rivers, and livelihoods. We don't want the kind of cleanup that you will explain to me that this place has been cleaned. It should be visible, it should be scientific. I should know, I should be part of it because it is my land. We don't need glossy websites that is telling us what has been done. I want to see it. I want to go back fishing again. I want to see our people go back to the farms again, because That is what we know how to do best. In the absence of a government, it is what we get from the farm and the river that we use in sending our kids to school and taking care of the medical bills of our family and all that consists. And that's why the thorough remediation and restoration of our land is very important. And we are not talking about only Ogoni now, because the Niger Delta is linked together. Ogoni is not an island. Even if you clean up Ogoni and other parts of the Niger Delta are not clean, Ogoni will not be clean. Because what affects one end automatically gets to the other one. We are linked together. It's a very fragile, environment. So as it is commencing Ogoni, it should, cover the entire Niger Delta. And we are not begging for that. You met us as a food basket in this country. We are rich fishermen and farmers. If you are trying to run away, you must restore my land and my river to where you meant it. So we are not begging. Nobody is begging anybody. It is our right to restore back our environment to where you met it. We are also demanding that every drop of spilled oil must be accounted for. Every community must be healed. Every life must be restored. This cleanup must be scientific, transparent, and independently monitored, with local communities fully involved in planning and execution. Polluted water sources must be detoxified, mangroves regenerated, and farmlands returned to productivity. Anything less is an insult to the memory of those who died demanding justice and a continuation of the very injustice Ken Saro-Wiwa fought and died for. It will be a dance on the grave of Ken Saro-Wiwa, and we do not want that.
Today is a sober moment again that we remember how Ken was hung by the dictatorial regime of General Sani Abacha. It was a sad moment for all of us then, young activists. I was in his saying, we never believe it will happen. And I want to charge some of us in the room again to read and update ourselves about circumstances that led to the judicial murder of Ken. However, we gather today again to look at what Ken stood for, and as he rightly predicted, his ideas will never die. Uh, and most importantly, our demand number two, which is that we are demanding accountability from multinational oil companies. That corporations whose current and historical activities contribute to environmental infractions and injustice pay commensurate compensation for the devastation they have caused, not as charity, but this payment must reflect the true cost of decades of pollution, loss of livelihood, destruction of ecosystems, and the general poverty imposed on our communities. Um, this is in accordance with the principle of polluters pay. These corporations have over the years polluted lands in Ogoni, across the Niger Delta, and across the global south. And if you follow in the climate change conversation, you find that the Africa, for instance, contribute less than 4% of the problems, but we are the receiving end. And at the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, discussion have been around climate financing, loss and damage. But for us, we are saying there should be climate reparation. There were historical injustices committed on as a people on our environment, and that these corporations must be paid. No company, no corporation should be allowed to divest or walk away from those liabilities as they are trying to do now in Nigeria in the name of divestment. They should not walk away while people still drink poisoned water and farm on toxic soil. True accountability means cleaning up their mess, restoring what was lost, and submitting to legal, financial, and moral responsibility for crimes they have committed against our people and against our environment.
Yeah, so we're asking for justice for communities. You understand that in the entire Niger Delta, the environmental pollution has gone so far and wide that it is everywhere in the Niger Delta. It is as bad as you plant crops and you're a scientist and you want to test, the result you will get sometimes are 3,000 more than what is permissible either by Nigerian government, which is even not too nice, not to talk of the World Health Organization. We have carried out some kind of test that shows oil, hydrocarbons in roots and stems. That means the level of hunger that will come and meet the people of Niger Delta will be what can be described as famine. Our statement is this: the state must prioritize the interests of the communities and keep them from being further exposed to harmful acts perpetrated by greedy corporations in their inordinate pursuits of profit. It's unfortunate that the Nigerian government does not care. It is profit built. It doesn't bother what happens to the people. They just want to extract in a way that is so irresponsible. That is even the problem. Justice means safeguarding the rights of the people to live in dignity, to breathe fresh air, drink safe water, and farm on unpolluted soils. These are realities in the Niger Delta. Check them up and you'll see them. It means rejecting policies and contracts that sacrifice communities on the altar of profits and ensuring that remediation, restoration, and development reach the people directly. Even as we have a working document that's called the PIA, the PIA itself is still against communities. In the pursuit for justice for communities, we also request for a revisit to the PIA, especially where it asks that communities should be responsible for safeguarding of oil facilities. The Nigerian military and its joint forces have failed in this area. People with arms well trained for this kind of job have failed woefully. They are now pushed it to communities, further putting them in danger and forcing it down their throats. We need this to be revisited and leave the community out of it. In another case, they should hand over the oil to communities and decide what they want to do with it. If the government wants to continue taking it from communities, then it should be responsible for what happens. Clean up the environment, make sure that people have good soil to farm so they can have good produce. Otherwise, it's all not fair. People in the Niger Delta are walking corpses, if you want to know. Not filtered through corrupt bureaucracies. Above all, justice for communities requires that their voices guide decisions about their land and resources, so they are never again treated as expendable in the chase of oil wealth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to add to the discussions that are already in existence, it's important that in all of these, our communities are not criminalized in all of it. And part of it is talking about the decriminalization of shared struggles. Never again must any dissenting opinion and voices of truth be silenced or intimidated. We call for the protection and not incarceration of environmental and human rights agitators, acknowledging that their voices are not threats to the state, nor democratic control of common resources. To criminalize these activities, just as has been done to Ken and his co-travelers, it means to criminalize justice itself. And in criminalizing justice itself, it also states to the fact that communities should or don't have a right to voice of any opinion of their point. And to speak on their behalf of vulnerable people and the environment. There are Courage must be recognized and service to humanity not treated or subverted. The state must guarantee freedom of expression, the right to peaceful assembly, and protection from harassment that no citizen will ever again face the gallows, just as Ken and his travelers said, for demanding fairness and accountability. And in addition, it's also important we look at the immediate reviews of all pending cases of peaceful activists or peaceful human rights activists that are already in existence in the country. And for the communities, it's important we look at restorative justice. Restorative justice has to look at how communities can get some form of justice. And in addition to that, we as a people, and we as a community, and also this panel, are still insisting that while the government is thinking of restorative justice for the communities, there should be immediate cleanup of the Niger Delta. And I keep insisting, and I will say again, that it's important that money should be set aside for the immediate cleanup of the Niger Delta. Whatever is going on is applauded, but I don't think it's sufficient enough. We still demand that $1 trillion should be set aside for the immediate cleanup of the Niger Delta as a way of giving the people a little bit of succor, a little bit of hope that there is some form of governance in existence, and also there's hope for people who own these resources.